Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel today. The draft is in 3 days, and as we get closer and closer and closer, you guys have seen mock draft after mock draft after mock draft, but this is the last one, and hopefully this is the best one. You guys honestly have no idea how long I have studied and prepared and researched to do this final mock draft, which will be the mock draft that I grade myself on come draft day. So I have all my picks written down. I have everything perfectly articulated just the way that I think it's going to unfold. And like I've said in previous videos, I will be live streaming the draft. So hopefully in about 3 days, I realize that this list is completely correct, or maybe I'm a complete idiot and it's not correct. But I really tried hard to make this mock draft as accurate as possible. As you guys can see, I have plenty of trades in this mock draft. Now, that was done through a combination of doing some research, looking at the history of these GMs and coaches, figuring out what positions would fit what teams in what spots. And honestly, the way that I came up with a lot of these trades was using trade calculators, like on the internet, or some of the stuff that the NFL guys use. Maybe not the NFL guys, maybe just the casual fan like me. But I do have all the trades listed out here, and I will be going through them and talking through them. This mock draft will probably be a little bit longer. I'm going to go in depth on just about every single pick. So if you guys are enjoying, please make sure to subscribe. And again, do not miss on Thursday night, I will be live streaming the draft. But let's get into it. I'm going to waste no more of your time. And let's start the mock draft with the easiest pick, Caleb Williams to the Bears. They're not trading the pick. They're not taking Daniels or Maye or McCarthy. Caleb Williams has been the pick for the Bears, #1 overall, ever since the Panthers gifted them the first overall pick. Justin Fields was never going to be an option next year. McCarthy, Maye, Daniel, no. Caleb Williams, it's been Caleb Williams, and it will be Caleb Williams come Thursday night. This is the one pick in the draft that I would bet every single penny that I've ever made in my life on. I would be beyond shocked if this doesn't happen. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that the top 3 picks in this draft are going to be Williams at 1 to the Bears, and then some combination of Maye or Daniels 2 and 3. Now, I've really gone back and forth on whether or not I think it's going to be Drake Maye, whether it's going to be Jayden Daniels, and I do believe the Commanders have as well. I don't think that this has been a decision that's been made. We saw this past week they've invited a lot of the guys out to, I think it was to Topgolf or something. They've spent extensive amount of time with all of these guys. Truthfully, they have their pick. After Caleb Williams, they have the second pick in the draft. They got to get this right. They got to get the new regime off to a good start. Again, I was really 50-50 on this, but after hearing Jayden Daniels' agent kind of bitch, piss, and moan about the way the Commanders went about it, I think maybe that would set him off a little bit. Not set him off necessarily, but maybe not look as Jayden as favorably as they maybe would have last week. So I think it was a coin flip, and I think because of Jayden Daniels' agent and maybe the way that he handled some of these things in the pre-draft meetings, Drake Maye is going to be the pick for Washington. Then that makes that fairly obvious that the pick at number 3 is going to be Jayden Daniels for New England. Both of these teams need quarterbacks. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be too hard of a decision at 3 after the guy's taken at 2. I think it's going to be whoever's left of Drake or Jayden for the Patriots, because they need quarterback bad. You don't normally pick in the top 3 of the draft when you have a really good quarterback, so they don't. Then we're going to go into number 4. Now, I really did think about trying to trade down if I was the Arizona Cardinals. I really would, and I would definitely listen to offers. Monty, he's going to pick up the phone. He's going to get on the call with a lot of teams, seeing who wants to trade up to 4. But the thing is, 2 problems. A, I don't think the 4th quarterback in this draft, or even in any draft, is worth the 4th overall pick, which is, quarterback is the position that most teams would trade up for. And if you're the Cardinals, you would need to get something really good to bypass Marvin Harrison Jr. And when push comes to shove, I just don't think that they get enough of a king's ransom. I think Marvin Harrison is the guy here at pick 4. Some may say he's the best player in this draft. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I think that he is very close. He is amazing. I don't need to guess on Marvin Harrison Jr. more. You guys know the drill. And again, receiver is a big hole for the Arizona Cardinals right now. They have Kyler Murray, so they're set at quarterback, at least in the immediate future. I think that this is pretty much as obvious as it gets. Then at pick 5, I also think that the Chargers are going to go with receiver. And another guy that teams really, really like seems to be Malik Nabers. Now, I am of the opinion that Malik Nabers is probably wide receiver 2 in this class, but I think him and Rome Odunze are right there, right? Now, the reason that I would probably easily take Malik Nabers if I was the Chargers is because I think you need more of a speed threat, whereas, Rome Odunze is probably your X receiver. I think Malik Nabers would be a really good Z receiver. And again, as easy as it would be for us fans to give up on Quentin Johnston, the Chargers clearly can't give up on Quentin Johnston just yet. I think in an ideal world, he plays that X receiver spot, and he's able to, be that big body possession guy that they really need. And then Malik Nabers is the home run hitter over the top. I think if you're looking at play style wise, they would contradict each other in a good way. And again, don't tell me you don't want to see some moon balls from Justin Herbert to Malik Nabers. I mean, don't tell me that wouldn't be freaking awesome. Here at pick 6, I have the first trade up in the draft. I have the Denver Broncos trading up with the New York Giants for pick 12. The trade is Denver gives up the 12th pick, a 2025 first, and a 2025 second in exchange for the 6th overall pick in the draft. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that is a lot. And you're right, it is. The Broncos have not been shy to make ultra-aggressive moves. They traded multiple first-round picks for Russell Wilson, and it didn't really work out. They've traded a boatload of picks for Sean Payton, and the jury's still out on that. They have not been afraid to make big moves, and I think that George Payton is really fighting for his job here. And he knows that if he doesn't get the quarterback situation right fast, his job is most definitely on the line. Additionally, if this is the guy who is getting fired, why does he give a fuck if he's giving up future picks? There's kind of that logic. But I do think that the Denver Broncos are desperate to make a move. They have no answer at quarterback. Unlike some of the other teams, like the Raiders, they signed Gardner Minshew. He's okay. The Steelers got Russ and Justin Fields, and it's like that could work out. Broncos didn't do anything. And that really does lead me to believe that they're going to make a move in the draft to move up. And the pick at 6, the guy who's been climbing up draft boards would be JJ McCarthy. I think Sean Payton sees an interesting prospect with JJ McCarthy. I think he sees a guy that he can mold, that he can win with, and I'm sure the fact that he's a national champion doesn't hurt, right? So JJ McCarthy is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos. This pick at pick 7 for the Tennessee Titans is fairly easy. They don't need a quarterback. They are not going to be in the mix for, I don't think, a Michael Penix at this point. And a position that they do really need and that I think they're going to want to emphasize is offensive tackle. Joe Alt is the best offensive tackle in this draft, in my opinion. You could say Olu Fashanu, and I won't disagree, because he's an amazing tackle prospect. But I think Joe Alt is more of a slam dunk, certifiable, all-pro type of guy, and I think the Titans would be thrilled to get him at pick 7. All right, and then we got my next trade of the mock draft. The Indianapolis Colts move up 7 spots with the Atlanta Falcons. They trade up. What they give up is they give up the 15th pick and the 43rd pick in the draft, and they get the 8th pick and the 143rd pick from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, you might be asking, why would the Colts trade up? What are they going to trade up for? What do they need? Well, I personally believe that they're going to trade up for a wide receiver by the name of Rome Odunze. Now, they have Michael Pittman, who they re-signed, who was solid. I don't think he's anything spectacular, but he's solid. But outside of Michael Pittman, I think they're really dry in the receiver department, right? Alec Pierce is not very good. Josh Downs is relatively unproven, and he's more, I think, of he's more of a slot guy. I think you really want to load up on wide receivers, right? Think about Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen, formerly the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. What happened when they paired Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? He took off. He was an MVP. I think Anthony Richardson can have a similar trajectory to his career. Trajectory, where, you get a Michael Pittman who's solid, really good. Then you also give him Rome Odunze, which I think could unlock another level to this Colts offense. Again, they would be giving up what basically equates to a early second round pick. I don't think they mind that price. I don't think they balk at that too much, and they land Rome Odunze. Now, for my next trade, we have the Bears trading down. I think in this scenario, when Rome Odunze is off the board, Ryan Poles will get on the phone and he says, all right, we're going to make a move down, because I think Rome Odunze is there. They take Rome. If not, like in this scenario, I think that they would trade down. So I have the Bears trading with the New Orleans Saints. The Bears are going to trade away pick number 9 and pick number 75 to the Saints. And in return, they're going to get pick 14, pick 45, and pick 168. The Saints right here, I mean, they have a lot of options. I think that they have a lot of holes. That's not a good thing. They have a lot of options because they have a lot of holes. And in this scenario, you're looking at a guy who could be a potential future All-Pro at a huge position of need for the Saints. That's Olu Fashanu, the tackle out of Penn State. Not only do I think does he have massive upside, and he really shouldn't escape the top 10, but I think that the Saints are so bad at tackle right now. Ryan Ramczyk is getting older and he's deteriorating, and Trevor Penning has just been a massive bust. Like, there's just no other way to put that. They need offensive tackle help badly, and Olufashano could do that for them. And again, I think it benefits the Bears as well, because in a scenario where they don't love somebody at pick 9, they would trade down, accumulate more picks. The Bears have the least amount of quantity of picks. They only have 4 picks, so they would add some more picks, while also, staying in that top half of the first round. Now come the Jets at pick 10. I think they go with Brock Bowers. I said the whole offseason that they would go with offensive tackle, and they addressed offensive tackle in free agency in a major way. They got Tyron Smith, they got Morgan Moses, and again, I think that this is a team that is trying to win now, right? I don't think they want to take a developmental guy at pick 10 that is going to help them in 2 to 3 years. I think they want a guy that is going to come in, be a difference maker day one, and that's going to be Brock Bowers. He is going to add a completely new element to that Jets offense with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen Aaron Rodgers in spurts have really good tight end play. Jimmy Graham for a little bit, Jared Cook for a little bit, Jermichael Finley for a little bit, right? I think you give him literally and figuratively a dog, and you just watch what that Jets offense is able to do. They're probably going to be a far cry from what they were last year with Zach Wilson, which is a good thing for Jets fans. But I don't think that this is necessarily a huge surprise. If the Jets are at 10 and Brock Bowers still on the board, I think a lot of people can put the dots together, right? Pick 11 for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they are also a team that I think needs a quarterback. And there's a really, really interesting guy on the board still. A guy that I think Kevin O'Connell would like to get his fingers on. That is Michael Penix Jr., the Washington lefty slinger. Listen, Minnesota, they're going into the year with Sam Darnold. And I don't care what way you slice it. I don't care what way you look at it. I don't care if you squint your eyes and tilt your head and, look back a little bit. That's not a good thing, right? Especially now when in your division you're going to have to go against Caleb Williams and Jordan Love and Jared Goff. Sam Darnold would be easily the 4th worst quarterback, or the 4th best quarterback in that division. And I don't care how good your team is, you're not winning your division with the 4th best quarterback. That's just the reality of the modern NFL. That's not to say that the Vikings are a great team to begin with, but adding a guy like Michael Penix Jr. to pair along with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, I think adds a really interesting element to this offense. It would kind of be, similar to what he was doing at Washington, where I think he's just going to sling the ball all over the yard. Kevin O'Connell, I think, will teach him to be a little bit more accurate, teach him to be a little more precise with some of his throws. But by golly, that could be a great pairing in Minnesota. Next, we're going to go with pick 12. Like I said, the Giants traded back with the Broncos. Now they have the 12th pick in the draft. I think they need a corner very badly. They also need receiver. There's not a great receiver left that I think you are, comfortable taking at pick 12. I think they go with Terry and Arnold here. A lot of people's cornerback 1 in this class. That's totally fine. We're sitting with the Raiders at pick 13. And I also think that they're going to go with the corner. I think they're going to go with Quinyon Mitchell. So I'll kind of lump these two together, right? The Giants need corners, mostly because their defensive line is now really, really good. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, the new addition. That's going to be a nasty defensive line. Now I think you need some DBs in the backfield that can actually complement that D-line and make plays on the ball, do everything like that. That would be a guy like Terry Arnold. Really, really fluid hips. I think his awareness is really good as well. And then for the Raiders with Quinyon Mitchell, kind of the same thing. They have a really good defensive line. Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. Hopefully, Tyree Wilson turns out to be something nice. But they need help in the defensive backfield as well. So back-to-back corners at pick 12 and 13. And then for the Bears at pick 14, I think that this is, Ryan Poles would win Executive of the Year for this because this is probably the guy they were going to take at 9 anyways. and now they move down 5 spots and still land him. That would be Dallas Turner, the Alabama edge rusher. Some people believe he's the best edge rusher in this class. I won't necessarily say that I think that that is 100% the truth, but I think he does have the highest ceiling. I think he's a guy that the Bears would really like to pair opposite of Montez Sweat. And holy shit, this Bears team could get very, very dangerous very quick. Again, I think a trade down for the Bears makes sense given that they only have 4 picks. Trading up for the Saints to land a guy like Olu Fashanu also makes sense. I think that's a win-win for both teams. Pick 15, I think the Falcons also go with edge rusher. I think that is Latu out of UCLA. Now, again, the Falcons traded back because you probably, wouldn't take one of these guys at pick 8. Maybe Dallas Turner. I think if they stuck at 8, they would probably take Dallas Turner. But I think, you're in a much better spot if you trade down, 6, 7, 8 picks and still land a guy like Latu, who I think is right up there with Turner. New defensive coach coming in, Raheem Morris. They have plenty invested on the offensive side of the ball with their offensive skill positions. Now let's get some defense. Let's get some pass rushers. That is Latu out of UCLA. Now you might be noticing my Seattle Seahawks are not on the board pick 16. That's because they traded down with the Eagles. More on that later. But for this specific trade, the Seahawks gave up pick 16, pick 102, and pick 192. And in exchange, they got pick 22, pick 53, and pick 210 from the Eagles. Now, you might be wondering, what are the Eagles going to do? Well, I still think that they go with a defensive back. You look at Vic Fangio. He has been a defensive back mastermind throughout his career. He had the one-hit wonder year of Eddie Jackson. You had Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain when he was in Denver. Even going back to his San Francisco days, Deshaun Goldson, Carlos Rogers. That's a throwback, right? The Eagles need DBs, and that's really no secret. I personally think that they would love to invest in a versatile guy like a Cooper DeJean who could play safety, who could play corner, depending on the scheme, depending on the formation, whatever. I think that would almost be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I think it's something that Philly, would really like to do. And Howie, if he likes Cooper DeJean, I have no doubt in my mind that he would be ultra aggressive to move up to go get him. That would not surprise me at all. After that, we have the Jaguars up. They're going to take Talisi Fuaga. The best offensive lineman still available. I think their priority needs to be protecting Trevor Lawrence. Some of his protection last year was just terrible. There's really not a whole lot of analysis there. Just get, protection for your former number 1 overall pick. It was not great last year, and the offense was stagnant the whole year, I think, because of it. Next on the board, we have the Bengals taking Troy Fattanu. Again, very similar. Protect your number 1 overall pick quarterback. The Bengals have tried and failed ever since drafting Joe Burrow to get him a consistent offensive line, and it's cost them. It has cost them. Get a guy like Troy Fattanu in the middle. You can play him at guard or you can play him at tackle, depending on where he fits. I think this is a big, plug and play guy for your offense. I think he's a guy that you can insert right away. Makes that Bengals offense so much more dangerous. The more time that Joe Burrow has to throw, the more likely that Jamar Chase is going to be running butt naked open down the field, or T. Higgins is going to be able to separate and moss somebody. So it's just so beneficial for this Bengals offense to have that good protection. Next, at 19 for the Rams, I think pretty obvious hole on their team right now is the departure of Aaron Donald. Johnny Newton, I think, would be a great pick for them. He is my defensive tackle 1. I have him over Byron Murphy in this class, who we'll talk about in just a second. But he's a physical freak, had so many pressures at Illinois, was able to rush the passer on a consistent basis. And again, you have a massive hole in the middle of your defense. Do I think Johnny Newton can be Aaron Donald? No, I think Aaron Donald is like a once-in-a-franchise level player. But they need to try because right now I think their defense is really devoid of talent. I think, they kind of got by last year, but I think they're in for a rude awakening with the departure of Aaron Donald. Pick 20 for the Steelers. I think they go with receiver. I'm sticking with Brian Thomas here. It just makes too much sense to me, honestly. They've invested in quarterback in free agency. They traded away Deontay Johnson. They need receivers. The Steelers are historically really, really good at developing receivers. And right now, your only competent one is probably George Pickens. So I think Brian Thomas makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. And then another pick that I think makes a lot of sense for the Dolphins here is Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas. Kind of similar to the Rams. They had their star defensive tackle leave them. This one was via free agency to the Raiders, but they need to replace Christian Wilkins, and they need to have some firepower on that defensive line. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills at pick 22, and you're like, well, what the hell, Mike? I thought the Seahawks traded for pick 22. They did. I have another Seahawks trade. Now, the reason I'm trading so much with the Seattle Seahawks is because they don't have a plethora of picks. They're down, a couple picks in the second round, and in the middle round as well. And John Schneider has shown a history of trading down. He is not afraid to do so. And I think a lot of the positions that the Seahawks would target would still be there later on in this first round. So to recap the trade, I am going to give the Buffalo Bills pick 22 from Seattle and pick 81. And in exchange, the Seahawks will be receiving pick 28 and pick 60. For the Buffalo Bills right here, I think the pick is pretty obvious that it has to be a wide receiver. I think a guy that is very worthy of a top 22 pick in this draft would be Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. I love his film. Obviously, trading away Stephon Diggs. They are in the market for a receiver. They definitely are. I don't think you want to go into the year with Khalil Shakir being your number one receiver. No offense. But I just think that makes a lot of sense for the Bills. Again, trading up 6 spots. You basically swap, second and third round picks. You basically fall back a few, dozen picks in the middle round, but you move up to get the guy you want. I think that's what really matters. Pick 23 for the Minnesota Vikings. I actually really love this pick, and I have loved this pick for a while. That would be Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. They need a corner. I think he fits Brian Flores' scheme. Long arms. He's fast. He can run. He can play man coverage. I think that's what you're going to have to do in Minnesota's defense right now. And I think it works, right? I just think it works. For the Dallas Cowboys, I think a guy that they cannot let sit on the board any longer is Jared Verse. Pair him up with Micah Parsons. I think it could be nasty. They have a new, defensive coordinator coming in, obviously. And again, I think those two guys, DeMarcus Lawrence is getting older. I think he's like 32, 33, whatever. He's getting up there. But again, you can never have enough pass rushers. That is, not a bad thing to have a plethora of. For the Green Bay Packers, I think they might want to go with Amaris Mims. Now, David Bakhtiari has been released / retired / I don't exactly know. Regardless, they need an offensive tackle. You saw the steps of improvement that Jordan Love took last year, what the young receivers took. I think at pick 25, you're thinking either defense or offensive tackle. In this instance, I think they take a shot at the potential project with Amaris Mims, a guy that could be very, very interesting in this league. Now, New York Giants up at the board, again at pick 26, and they made a trade. They made a trade with the Buccaneers. This is my last trade of the first round. Now, the reason, and I'll get to that in a second, the reason they traded this pick is because they were able to acquire the 26th pick, and in exchange, they sent out to Tampa Bay pick 47 and pick 70. Now, you might be saying, well, who did they trade up in the draft for? That would be Mr. Bo Nix. Now, if you look higher in the draft, at pick 6, they traded down. So you might be saying, well, if they take a quarterback, it might be at 6. Well, in this instance, they trade down to get Terry Arnold and accumulate some other picks. And then they take some of those picks and they move back up to get Bo Nix. Now, the reason I think that you want to trade up in the first round to take Bo Nix, if you're really liking him, is because you get that 5th-year option that's so valuable for quarterbacks. So they want that 5th-year option. Maybe they let Bo sit a year under Daniel Jones because they do have an out in his contract here coming up, and then that would give them 4 additional years. Regardless, I think that they would move up to take Bo Nix. Pick 27 for the Arizona Cardinals. They need a corner badly. I think a corner that I really, really like, and I would hate to see in Arizona because I'm a Seahawks fan, would be Kool-Aid McKinstry. Talk about just adding firepower to both sides of the ball. You get Marvin Harrison and Kool-Aid McKinstry. Again, do I think that Monty is going to try to make a trade in this draft? I do. I wasn't necessarily able to connect the pieces just yet, but I think that it totally makes sense for a guy, for a team like Arizona to trade up or trade down. But for this draft, I have them sticking at 4 and 27, getting Kool-Aid and Marvin, which is a good haul in itself. Then for my Seattle Seahawks, I have them taking Jackson Powers-Johnson, the center out of Oregon. Listen, they need interior offensive line play badly. Like, they are so down bad for offensive line play right now. It is not even funny. I think Jackson Powers-Johnson is probably the best center in this draft. I'm sure he has guard flexibility as well, which would be valuable for Seattle. Speaking of guards, we got the Detroit Lions coming up, And I really do think that they would take Graham Barton in this instance to replace Jonah Jackson. I don't think that it could be understated how important the offensive line is for Detroit with their running game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and the system that Ben Johnson wants to run. Jonah Jackson was a huge departure for them. They replaced him with Graham Barton here in the first round. Now for the Baltimore Ravens. This is interesting to me. This is really interesting because you could go a few different directions here. I personally think that they want to go with an offensive lineman and an offensive tackle specifically. In this instance, I think that would be J.C. Latham. Would replace / be better than Morgan Moses. And, Ronnie Stanley as well is getting old and everything like that. So I think they reinvest in the offensive line. For the 49ers, I have them going with Jordan Morgan. Kind of the same thing. They need offensive linemen bad. Outside of Trent Williams, who is also getting up there in years, they don't have a lot of quality offensive linemen. And then the last pick, and probably the most fun pick of this first round, is to give the Chiefs the guy who just broke the 40-yard dash record. So this is my completed final mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, I will be live on Thursday for the draft, so make sure to come by and check it out. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.